What's going on, you wonderful people? Welcome to the Bitchuation Room podcast live stream. It's a stream, it's a cast, it's a show. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini, with probably long COVID. I don't know what's going on with my voice, guys. I don't know. It's not a branding thing. I'm not changing it. I just am perpetually hoarse. I think it's because, and this is true, I think it's because my daughter makes me sing all the time because I have the voice of an angel. No, but she really likes songs, and I'm just like constantly trying to hit them Raffi notes, and I can't always do it. Welcome. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking and sharing the stream if you're streaming. We've got such a great show. Wajahat Ali is here, friend of the show, columnist and podcaster in his own right, and author. We're going to be talking about TikTok at last, finally. Thank God. I've been wanting to talk about this for so long, and I skipped it on Friday, but I'm talking about it today. We're also going to talk about RFK Jr. Different, going to go. It's not necessarily relevant to this week, but maybe all weeks. I don't know. It just seems like we need to talk about him. So we will. And then David Dayen of the American Prospect is going to be here, and I want to talk to him about what is Biden doing that is not awful. What are the good things? Let's talk about Bidenomics. Let's talk about the ways that he's just nibbling at the knees of capitalism. Maybe just little love nibbles. They're nibbles. He's trying. He's helping a little bit. So I'm very curious because David's always good at sort of putting in perspective, reminding us of all the things that are happening behind closed doors and things that, to be frank, this administration doesn't do a great job messaging around. And then the Veep stakes, people. Trump, what do we call it? Trump Veep? Trump mate, I think is what we're calling it. Who is going to be Donald Trump's running mate? This is so fun. It's fun to be like excited about the horse race of fascism, like who will he pick to be his handmaid? I hate myself, but also we're going to talk about it. Remember, people, this show is ad-free except for the ad I'm about to read in a little bit. And if you want that ad-free content, patreon.com/bitchuationroom is where you go. Really looking forward to all that, meaning all that your support. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. You get access to the bonus episodes. Last week was excellent. I don't even remember what we talked about, but we talked about it for a while and it was good. So if you are like, I like this show, remember, you're only listening to half of the show. You're only watching half of the show. Become a member, become a patron, or as I'm now calling it, become a patrón. If you want to be a patrón, como que en la vida, pero en mi corazón, become a patron. I mean a patrón. Hoy mismo. And with that, guys, let's get into it. This is What Are You Bitching About? So obviously, I am bitching about, in part, women in Louisiana being given C-sections instead of abortions. Kill me. Or them, or all women. Who cares? What are we? Bare life, you pieces of but no, I am actually bitching about something very specific. It's been an interesting 24 when it comes to hearing how Donald Trump and his ilk would handle this genocide in Gaza, and what their opinions of it are, and what their opinions of Jews in America is. Donald Trump today reiterated the fact that if you don't love Israel, and by extension Netanyahu, you don't love your religion. If you're Jewish, you're not actual. If you vote Democrat and you're a Jew in this country, which the overwhelming majority of Jews in this country do, you don't love your religion, because the Democrats, according to him, hate Israel. I think Biden and his 100+ arms shipments to Netanyahu would beg to differ with that. But I digress. There was someone more specific I want to talk about. This was Jared Kushner, speaking at Harvard for his expertise in peace. Remember how he was tasked with peace? Here he is being given this pretty obviously hot topic of 31,000 Palestinians a very conservative estimate, killed by Israel. And what should happen? Should the Gazans who've been displaced be allowed to come back? That is what the moderator queries, and hear how Jared answers this question.
But also there are real fears on the part of Arabs, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of them, who think once Gazans leave Gaza, Netanyahu's never going to let them back in.
Maybe, but I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. You have another war. Usually when wars happen, borders are changed historically over time. And so my sense is I would say, how do we deal with the terror threat that is there so that it cannot be a threat to Israel or to Egypt, right? I think that both sides are spending a fortune on military. I think neither side really wants to have, a terrorist organization enclaved right between them. I mean, Gaza's waterfront property. It could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
In other words, NBD, bro. Maybe he wouldn't want them to return, but would that be so bad? Clear it out, build, get some Saudi money like I did, and we can just make that cash. What? On the graves of children? A big deal, man. I mean, yay. So, people, two points I want to make, and then we can move on. Number one, Jared Kushner represents the right in this country, which sadly on this issue, there's not a lot of difference between the right and the so-called, Democrats, I guess, the center. But this is saying the quiet part out loud. And it's something that Democrats do not say, even though they fund this genocide, even though they all, Nancy Pelosi, all we got to do, there's a few more things they've got to get done, and then I think they'll do it. Or even Bernie Sanders, I don't think you can have a ceasefire with Hamas. I'm going to go through all of them. And yet, the fact that they still say that the death of Palestinians is, in their words, tragic, right? And that they want some sort of lasting peace, and that they do believe in a two-state solution, that is truly the difference between that and a real estate developer who is bloodthirsty and does not give an F what happens to the Palestinian people, and his father-in-law, Donald Trump, who not only that, but layers in a whole bunch of anti-Semitism about if you're a Jew and you don't vote for me, if you don't vote for a Republican, then you hate your religion. So twofold. Number one, to my progressive friends, there is a difference between these two lines, I believe. I believe that Biden and Democrats are easier and better to make enemies out of on this issue, and we're making enemies out of them. And we need them to actually stay in office so we can further pry them apart from Bibi Netanyahu and the occupation and their arms, right? And then to my liberal Zionist friends, do you hear the way the things that you've said are being echoed out of the mouth of Jared Kushner? This, I guess they shouldn't have spent money on all those tunnels. They could have really had some condos. Liberal Zionists have said this to my face. People have said this to my face. Well, if Hamas really cared, well, why didn't they, build up a casino or something instead of spend money on weapons? Why didn't they build up an education system that we are currently bombing and systemically? Why didn't they build up hospitals that were imploding? Why didn't the Israeli government allow medicine, basic needs, construction material? You know what moves through those tunnels in Gaza? Construction material, diapers. Basic things that Israel would not allow the people of Gaza because they blamed each and every one of them for the fact that Hamas was democratically elected 17 years ago. It's called the Siege of Gaza. So miss me with all that, but isn't it funny how much you sound like Jared Kushner? Are you going to vote for Trump? Do you want Trump back in office? because you say that all the people who want Palestinians to live just want Trump back in office. It sounds like your line is actually more aligned with Trumpism than ours. But I'm not mad about it. Before I bring in my guests, I could use this right now. Sunset Lake CBD, everybody. For when you need extra calm, for when you need focus, for when you need clarity. This is an awesome company based out of Vermont. They're vertically integrated. They grow, harvest, process all of their CBD products. They even have Delta 9 products, with which 5 milligrams of hemp-derived THC, which, gets you in that happy place, which I would like to be right now. They have tinctures, gummies, smokables. They have salve, which is like really good for aching muscles. I love the Good Night oil. I like the Good Night oil. It's got melatonin in it. It helps me sleep because this brain doesn't stop. Turn it off. Turn it off. Also, they've got great values and they donate to awesome causes. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA, for 20% off your purchase. And with that, to join me and maybe to bitch a little bit more about all this or something related, columnist of the Daily Beast, author of Go Back to Where You Came From, and co-host of the Democracy-ish podcast, Wajahat Ali.
Hello.
Hi.
That was a mighty fine rant. It was exquisite. I gave it a golf clap.
That's usually an ironic golf clap, but you for real.
I'm a teetotaler. So if I was a drinking man, I would raise the glass, and I'm also fasting, so that would be like very dubious right now. But
So haram.
This is my mythical non-haram glass. Your rant like actually dovetails to something that has been bothering me, and I just, if I may, just
Yes.
piggyback on your rant is Jared Kushner, the same man who just did that grade A supervillain dialogue, the type of stuff that you hear a Bond villain say just so casually, was just recently, if you remember, Francesca, awarded by the ADL with the slot at their annual conference. ADL folks, Anti-Defamation League, said, this is the guy that we're going to platform. And his father-in-law, in addition to what he just said about Jews, he is also still using Hitlerian language, Hitleresque, of vermin and poisoning our blood, which Hitler used to dehumanize Jews, which then resulted in a genocide. And Trump is using to this day, even after being told about his genocidal past against immigrants. And the country just moves on. And because the people who are the real threats are these pro-Palestinian activists, or in the case of Academy Award-winning director Jonathan Glazer, this is my rant, a Jewish British filmmaker who makes a fantastic movie, Zone of Interest, I recommend everyone see it, about the complicity of those who were Nazis or Nazi adjacent during a genocide. And specifically, he does a fictionalized account of a Commander Haas. And I don't know if you haven't, don't worry, I'm not spoiling it, but the movie doesn't show you what's happening in Auschwitz, which is next door. You hear it. What you see is this idyllic, brilliant landscape, garden and animals and kids. And the movie shows the dehumanization and what happens with the dehumanization, even to the people who are perpetrated. And in his Oscar speech, which I thought was a lovely speech, which he read with his hands trembling,
yes,
he showed empathy towards the victims of the October 6th Hamas attack and to Palestinians, and said that he would not allow his Jewishness and the Holocaust to be weaponized to further an occupation that has fueled endless cycles of violence. I thought it was a very lovely sentiment. The only person to say anything during this ongoing, what some people call a genocide in Gaza, that has killed 30,000 people. He again is Jewish American, he's Jewish British filmmaker, made a movie about the Holocaust, and as of yesterday, 450 Jewish American Hollywood creatives and professionals, that's what they refer to themselves as, signed an absurd letter. I actually read the letter. I'm like, if I was a publicist, I'm like, please don't sign your name. And I think they should fire all their publicists. They signed this absurd letter, pretty much signaling him out, not mentioning anything about what's happening in Gaza, putting occupation in quotation marks. And essentially, the reason why I think we should be worried about it is it's a signal. You better stay in your lane. You better stay quiet.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go after Jonathan Glazer. And if we're going after Glazer and Melissa Barrera, the friggin' face of a lucrative reboot Scream franchise, then what the hell? What's going to happen to you and me, Francesca?
No, first of all, I think that's, I mean, you and me have seen our friend Mehdi Hassan lose his platform. So you and me have examples even closer to home than that. But me being in LA and trying to, break in and basically like sell scripts and be friendly with folks here, like it is a warning shot and it is incredibly scary. And I was going to bitch about that as well. But I think what it shows is how mad, just in general, how mad not Jewish Americans specifically, but how mad people were about Zionists, how mad Zionists were that there was even an applause. Because that to me, more than the speech, the fact that people stopped him and applauded was absolutely groundbreaking and shows you that the tides are turning on this issue and you can speak out against occupation and genocide and not be an anti-Semite. But what happens is even when Jews do it, what happens? They get called anti-Semitic and or not Jewish. Oh, you're not Jewish.
Capo, or they call them capos, which is like Jewish collaborators or un-Jews. It is, and I always tell my Jewish friends, I've been telling them for the last 5 months, and on the DL, we have these conversations with Jewish American leaders. I'm like, this is bad for Jews. Like, at the end of the day, it's terrible for Palestinians, terrible for Muslims, those who look Muslim, terrible for anyone who espouses anything for pro-Palestine, terrible for free speech, terrible for democracy, also really bad for Jews.
Yes.
And
Matt tells me this all the time.
It's a feast moment for white nationalists. White nationalists are going to feast on this.
Yeah. Oh, well, and Matt tells me this all the time because he's like, what I'm really pissed about is that conflating Israel and Judaism and seeing what Israel is doing now makes people hate Jews. Like, he's not afraid for his life or anything, but he's just like, this breeds anti-Semitism. And it always has. It always has, in terms of Israel's liability to everybody, and specifically the Jewish people. But here's the statement. I just want to double down on how bad it was. We're Jewish creatives, executives, and Hollywood professionals. We refute our Jewishness being hijacked for the purpose of drawing a moral equivalence between a Nazi regime that sought to exterminate a race of people and an Israeli nation that seeks to avert its own extermination. You don't think that Hitler was also worried about, he was saying like white genocide. Hitler was worried about the continuation and the purity of the German race. The idea that it's just so annoying. It's so ridiculous to me that they're going to say we're averting our extermination by, in their words, doing this war, eradicating Hamas. But what we all see is by doing extermination.
But
we're
look
going
at the
to
next
exterminate first. You can read it.
Every civilian death in Gaza is tragic. Israel is not targeting civilians. It is targeting
They're
Hamas.
dying on their own.
Yeah, and then the next paragraph, the use of the words like, quote, occupation to describe an indigenous Jewish people defending a homeland that dates back thousands of years and has been recognized as a state by the United Nations distorts history. It gives credence to the modern blood libel that fuels a growing anti-Jewish hatred around the world, in the United States and in Hollywood. It's like, my God, why would you sign this? Why? And then they did. 450 people signed it. And you're like, you need a better publicist.
You do. And
painful.
It's painful. And it makes me sad because I actually want to have empathy for people who, are in the cult of Zionism and do conflate Zionism and Judaism wrongly. And again, these are 450 Jews. I'm not like, what do you say other than look at your Jewish brothers and sisters who are leading this struggle to stop this genocide? Like, you do not represent everyone. And it's such a exercise in fragility that you saw it to throw this Oscar winner under the bus, this filmmaker who brought to light this incredible story, again, about what happens when you turn a blind eye to human extermination. And you throw that person under the bus? I mean, is there anyone who will not be a casualty with their their character, their life, who will not be a casualty for the cause of Israel? It's just
And he was empathetic. He was like, his whole speech was about empathy towards all people there. And I remember, look, I'll share with you and your listeners, several years ago, I had a conversation with Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL. I know him.
yeah,
And ADL, about I think 5 or 6 years ago, if you remember this, Francesca, they went after Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison was the first
yeah,
Muslim ever elected to office. He's now the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, something like that.
yeah, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, and you know, progressive, Black American, and they used a known Islamophobe, his website, Steve Emerson, and some audio leak of Keith talking to Muslims and just very casually saying, "Listen, this is how business works. APAC does this. You got to do what APAC does. APAC has a lot of influence." He wasn't even like doing the conspiracy theory. He goes, "Nope, APAC does it."
Yeah,
And they used that distorted to say he was anti-Semitic. And I warned him at that time. I said, "Jonathan, if you're saying that Keith Ellison, a man who has the backing of many Zionist Jews, a man who is against BDS, a man who is for a two-state solution, a man who has visited Israel, a man who has visited Auschwitz, if he's not kosher enough for you,
yeah,
do you not see what you're doing? That
yeah.
means no one's kosher, and then you're making frenemies and enemies out of potential allies. And it's not just the Muslims and Arabs, because we were the lowest hanging fruit. I'm like, progressives and Black folks are paying attention to this,
But
and
that's
they didn't listen to me.
yes, and we've seen the Black pastors now speak out against this genocide, and also we know the way that Black Americans get disciplined the hardest when it comes to Israel and potential anti-Semitism. They are, and I say that disciplined because it is a paternalistic thing. They are threatened. There's money spent against them. Look at Ilhan Omar. Look at Nina Turner. Like there is a correlation here. Look at Cori Bush, and all of that. So.
PG wants us to move on. My bad, PG. But I thought that was juicy content.
It's very juicy. We got to move on though, because a lot of things happen in the week, but only two in my book. This is the week where. This was the week where the House passed a bill that would force TikTok to either be sold or face a ban in the United States because of what the US says is China's influence on the app. Now, this is a really ironic way to stick it to what you call an authoritarian country, which is do authoritarian shit. Like, that's just amazing to me. Like, there's nothing more CCP than banning TikTok. Like, you couldn't get like more communist. But anyway, I digress. It was a bipartisan agreement, and Biden will likely sign it. He has said as much before, and we want to dig into that a little bit. So hang on, just for some background. This legislation calls for Beijing-based parent ByteDance company to divest itself of TikTok or face the platform being banned from the app stores and web hosting services in the US. ByteDance would have a little more than 5 months from the enactment of the bill to comply. TikTok, which is accessed by more than 170 million Americans, sees this as an effective ban, said a spokeswoman. The company said by separating the US portion of the app wouldn't be practical and would undercut the appeal of the content app, which is global in nature. There are so many things to dig into in all of this, but a couple things about the legislation. Key to smoothing it out was Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, who actually, obviously, is Biden's Deputy Attorney General. One person said, Krishna Murthy, who I believe worked on the bill, asked Monaco to help with the process because she was both a senior Biden administration official and a vocal proponent of a TikTok ban. Let's stop there. And Waj, let me just ask you, the idea of forcing a company in a so-called capitalist society to sell, like, that is a news story in and of itself. That's just wild to me.
We're really concerned about our national security, and we're concerned about data breaches, and we're concerned about consumer privacy, and we're concerned about foreign or hostile actors using social media to disrupt our free and fair elections, which is why, as you know, Francesca, we've done so much against Meta.
Yes.
Which is guilty of all of the above, and to the tune of being fined by the EU for a record $1.3 billion. People kind of casually forget that. That was Meta, folks. And so my take on this is the following. Of course, China is a bad faith actor. It's a foreign country. Remember the big balloon? But it's TikTok. It's the
Don't forget
TikTok.
the balloon.
Yeah, never forget the balloon. but it's not doing anything that Facebook hasn't already done.
Yep.
And also Facebook has spread anti-vax conspiracy during a pandemic, thanks to like, what was it, 12 or 15 conservative accounts, and also has helped fuel in many countries the rise of hate
Yes.
and genocidal campaigns, thanks to its algorithm being used and abused, targeting the minority of those countries. So that's
Against
fine.
I believe it was in I think in the Philippines and also
Sri Lanka,
Sri
India.
Lanka. Yeah, a lot of people only connect to the internet via Facebook. So they've got effective monopoly on the internet. And there's all
Instagram
kinds
and
of
WhatsApp.
memes. Right. Yes. And so there's all kinds of awful memes targeting, yes, minority groups that float around. And like, I remember Duterte wanted to enlist Facebook and perhaps did to his benefit. That's all fine and good. We allow that. And at no point has anyone tried to anyway.
No, but
Yeah.
it goes back to our last point, right? It's all connected because if you're looking at, for example, if you're looking at the war in Gaza, if you look at the Utes, it's about 65-35 is a complete inversion, meaning quote unquote pro-Palestinian, right? Because they're seeing these images, these narratives. They're seeing TikTok kind of, for better and for worse, it's the wild, wild west, gives you all these stories that the old heads on Facebook and network television don't see. If you look at the politics on TikTok, for the most part, progressive, right? So this is deeply, deeply threatening to the right wing, to MAGA, to capitalists who want to control the narrative. In addition to that, sorry, go ahead.
Hold that thought, because I do want to get there, but I do want to say I think there's a counterpoint to what you're saying, which Nancy Pelosi articulated really well.
This is not an attempt to ban TikTok. It's an attempt to make TikTok better. Tic-tac-toe. A winner. A winner.
So, I mean, I know you were trying to make some good points, but I don't, did you have like were you talking like in a crossword or like a hangman's game or
I'm very
MASH?
happy to know that tic-tac-toe in no way, shape, or form entered into my brain as a potential analogy to make my, like, not once. But last thing I'll say is, like, look, that's the thing I want us to think about. If we truly care about privacy, which is we should, and these privacy concerns are real, national security concerns are real, Francesca.
Yeah.
Tell me why we haven't done anything remotely similar to Meta.
No, it is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we know that they've sold our data. We know that they're like how many times a week do we get like, oh, there's a data breach on all your stuff at Target. Anyway, we've got your home address. Like it's endless. And so they're so not serious. And to me, it's playing into the right and their whole like, whatever, their xenophobia and their war on big tech and bad faith war on big tech. But what I really want to talk about was what you mentioned, which was why now are they banning TikTok? So I hate to say it, but the Wall Street Journal did a great job explaining all of this, which was how this relates to Israel and Gaza. And to your point, this is Representative Gallagher from, I think, Wyoming, introduced this. Wisconsin, excuse me. And he's well liked by Democrats and his GOP colleagues and respected as an expert on the issue. His efforts appeared to stall, however, in 2023, but were revived in part by the fallout from the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, according to people close to TikTok and people close to lawmakers. TikTok's users quickly inundated the platform with videos about the attack and Israel's war on Gaza. Some lawmakers said TikTok appeared to favor pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel content and renewed calls to ban the app in the U.S. And we know that behind the scenes, folks like Sacha Baron Cohen, Deborah Messing, probably some other randos were like, TikTok is the enemy. You must ban it. And they were, lobbying behind the scenes to get it banned, which then counterpoint, look at all the IDF propaganda being posted on there as well. Where are they going to post all their stuff? Has been, like others have pointed out, where are they going to post videos of them posing in women's lingerie that they find from homes that they've demolished? I mean, anyway.
And also the sale. I don't know if you, pardon me if you didn't mention this. One of the buyers who has emerged in the past week is Steve Mnuchin. So I mean, it's just like, can you please make it less glaring and less subtle? possible.
And I think it should be sold. I understand the technology. It's a great business, and I'm going to put together a group to buy TikTok.
You're trying to buy TikTok?
I am, because this should be owned by U.S. businesses. There's no way that the Chinese would ever let a U.S. company own something like this in China.
You said
this dude, I was like, I'm so glad I don't have to look at certain people's faces anymore. This guy was one of them. Obviously, his face looks like an elbow, and he
No
is
disrespect to elbows.
Yeah, elbows do a lot of hard work, unlike this guy. And then he rears his little head. I'd really like to buy it. Yeah, I think it's a good business model, and I'd like to take advantage of it. Like, you're so right. Could you make it less obvious? And also, of course it's about Israel, because no other issue has Democrats acting so fucking dumb than Israel. Like, that's the only reason you could explain this move is because of Israel and the fear of AIPAC money.
And I'll say the big picture here is I'm glad you mentioned that Democrats are playing into the hands of the right wing. For the right wing, if you step back, it's consolidation of media. Steve Bannon said it's the media is the enemy, right? And you look at Elon Musk took over X. You look at Meta, a playground for right wing conspiracies. Look at Fox. You look at podcasts. For those who don't know, the whole podcast industry run by the right wing, radio, and now, if Mnuchin gets his way, TikTok.
Yeah. I actually kind of wanted to bring in, maybe he has some thoughts on it, but maybe a little early, and then we can save our RFK dunking a little later. Dunking, hell yeah. Sorry. But he's the executive editor of the American Prospect magazine, which you get access to if you become a patron, patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. 60% off the paperback version, access to it online. His name is David Dayen. He's got a book called Monopolized Life in the Age of Corporate Power, and I want to talk to him about that. But David, TikTok, something that would never be possible in any other climate, in any other moment, in any other, to force the sale of a private company. I mean, explain, how do you make sense of any of this?
I think you guys are going to get mad at me. Divestitures, forced sales have been a part of this country since its founding. There have been divestitures
Yeah, but not for a while.
because of actually literally every antitrust merger decision of the last several years.
But this is not on antitrust grounds.
No,
This is on xenophobic grounds.
Well, first of all, I would say it is not in opposition to a widespread privacy regime, but it's actually in relationship to it. If you actually look at what the FTC has done, they have done a number of huge data privacy litigations, including against Meta, by the way, which there is a current suit where they are banning Facebook from engaging in any targeted advertising to children after they violated the consent decree. Meta is fighting this, but they're slowly losing the case. There have been all kinds of other data broker and data hound litigation against Kochava, against BetterHelp, against GoodRx, against Avast, against YouTube. There are tons of privacy litigation, and I would put this actually in the context of being a complement to that, because there are some organizations that use and collect a massive amount of data that are simply out of the reach of the U.S. government. In this case, because it is owned by a foreign company that is in association with a foreign government, and so the idea of forcing a sale puts them under what really is a new regime in terms of data privacy and security that I think is ultimately fairly beneficial. Now, you can disagree with me. You can think it's for ulterior motives. That's fine. But
we know you're in love with Lena Khan. You said this, like, we just say it. We see you got a Lena Khan up in your locker.
I like Lena also.
I've known Lena for a long, long time.
But okay, But tell me it would not be better, like that it's better in the hands of Steve fucking Mnuchin, or if
Look,
this were any other company.
I take a back seat to no one in hating on Steve Mnuchin. I actually wrote this book, Fat Cat: The Steve Mnuchin Story. I co-wrote it with Rebecca Burns. There is no question that Steve Mnuchin is a boil on the butt of humanity. And fortunately TikTok has no opportunity to foreclose on people, because that's literally Mnuchin's favorite thing
Not
to do
yet.
in the world.
Yeah, just wait.
So yeah, I mean, obviously the who of this for sale matters, and we'll have to look at that if this bill passes, because I think the Senate, it's kind of going nowhere. So news alert, like I don't think this is going to happen. But
yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah,
but
I disagree, but that's from my vantage point.
There is no way, and I've heard this proposed, that this is about media consolidation in the sense of, oh, Facebook will buy it, or oh, Google will buy it. There is no way that will happen. Like there is no antitrust enforcer on earth that would allow that level of consolidation. And so then you look to outside groups, and Mnuchin himself, I think, does not have the working capital, but he might put a group together, and we'd have to assess it at that point. But ultimately, I think that if you think that there is a problem with the way in which companies are collecting, selling, and profiting off our data, what you should know is that the current regime of consumer protection that's in place right now, particularly at the Federal Trade Commission, but also at the CFPB and other agencies, is actually working to stop that. And so it's not really the case that there is that this TikTok thing came out of nowhere, and it's being, it's the only thing that's being done on privacy. That's actually not.
No, but it was stalled, and I don't think it is. I don't think it's a stretch to say that a lot of the behind the scenes lobbying around the kinds of information that was being spread about Gaza, I mean, that might have been the final sort of kick for this to get across the finish line.
Look, we have. I think that certainly AIPAC and those kinds of groups are very interested in getting their side of the story to be preeminent in with respect to this war. We just last week broke the story of we obtained AIPAC's talking points to Congress that came out of their policy conference last week in Washington, and we have the documents that literally they are presenting to Congress as this is our side of the story, and they literally say that Israel is not blocking aid to Gaza. They literally say that there is nobody starving in Gaza. I mean, they are completely out of whack with any kind of observable reality. And so the idea that they would also want to control a communications engine that is presenting a different view of things, sure, yeah. I mean, that's certainly possible, but I don't know that it's their number one thing.
Well, fine. I'll grant you that. No, I did read Luke's piece, by the way, on the bonus bish. It was great. I think it's really important everybody go listen to that or watch that back. But I want to talk to you because, it's been a few weeks since the State of the Union address, and Biden had a lot of touting to do. And there's a lot of last time you were on, we sort of do this check-in about Bidenomics. How's it going? And for specifically some of the things you mentioned that the FTC is doing behind the scenes, the things that aren't sexy or headline grabbing, but are helping consumers and privacy and whatnot. I wanted to go through how Biden's doing on stuff that isn't Gaza, because we need a few more reasons to defend this guy. And so a few things,
or at least vote for him. Maybe not defend him, but
exactly. I voted for John Kerry. You think I fucking defended that guy? Never. But in terms of inflation, right? He's touting that inflation has dropped to 3%, lowest in the world, that the landing will be soft, meaning, and I think he means we're going to lower interest rates. Maybe we're going to stop squeezing middle class people. Would talk
Right.
about this inflation stuff.
Sure.
Can he maintain this level?
I mean, what he means by soft landing, and what economists have meant by soft landing, is that we will get the disinflation, we will get the lower inflation without a concurrent loss of jobs. I mean,
Got it.
that's what
Yeah.
the point is there.
But
And that is
some are important.
and that's what we've seen, though. We continue to have these breakout jobs reports. The last one, I think, was 200 some odd thousand jobs created. That's about the monthly rate, and inflation keeps going down. And this is sort of at odds with what everybody thought. There are headlines you can find from Bloomberg and other business press that says 100% of economists predict a recession. It turns out we did not have that occur. And one of the reasons is that they were looking at inflation in a very particularized way. They were saying inflation is something that the central bank, the Federal Reserve, deals with, and they turn up interest rates. And the point of turning up interest rates is to lower demand in the economy, lower investment in the economy, kick people out of work, and get us to a demand level so that if demand drops, then the price drops. That was what their plan was, and that was kind of the thinking around this.
Right.
The reality is that we had a supply chain issue in 2021 and 2022.
That's totally fixed, right?
All ginned up, and when that simplified itself, and when we were able to get supply out, that created its own fix. And the other part of this is the sort of air that's left in inflation is about corporate profits. And it's very clear if you listen to any kind of corporate earnings call, they're giddy about the fact that they were able to raise their prices over the last couple years. And if you look at just any statistics, it shows that corporate profits as a percentage of the overall economy remain very elevated to where they were before the pandemic. And so there's room left to run there. And so what is the Biden administration doing about that? One of the things announced at the State of the Union was this thing he called a strike force. I don't know why we call these things that, have these like—
They sound cool, man.
These Justice League of America type
no capes
names, but it's basically an interagency working group. I'll say it the boring way. It's an interagency working group. That will look at prices in the economy and tell agencies that have laws that say you can't price gouge, you can't engage in deceptive practices, you can't do all of these things. Tell those agencies, hey, you have to fight back. We're seeing this in rental housing. We're seeing this in banking. We're seeing this in grocery prices. We're seeing this all over. One of the examples is that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, just before the State of the Union, announced that credit card late fees. So if you're 1 day late on your credit card payment, your minimum payment, they will hit a late fee on you. The average payment of that late fee was $32. And this is many multiples beyond what it actually costs the credit card companies to collect when there's a deficient payment. What the CFPB found is that actually costs the credit card industry maybe $8. And so you know what we're going to do? We're going to cap that late fee at $8. And they put that into place. They finalized that just a couple of weeks ago.
And that is something they can unilaterally do. I mean, this is...
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. In 2009, they passed a law called the CARD Act, which Congress prevented unreasonable fees from being introduced. And the way the Federal Reserve got around this is they said, yes, unreasonable fees aren't allowed, but we'll give credit card companies a safe harbor if they want to raise late fees. They literally immunized them from any kind of sanction if they wanted to raise late fees. That authority,
good old Greenspan.
Thank you. That authority, it was Bernanke, I guess. That authority got pushed over to the CFPB when it was created, and CFPB lifted the safe harbor. So they said, well, now you can't charge more than $8 or we'll go after you.
So wait,
So,
let's hang on. Time out. Let's go back to
yeah,
the corporation stuff because there was other announcements in
yeah.
there
Mhm,
in the State of the Union.
mhm.
He said he wants to raise the tax rate on corporations to 21%. Um, put that in a sort of historical context. Isn't that kind of still low? Wasn't it like
Sure.
25%
It was
back in?
30, it was 35. I mean, this is more of a legislative hope, let's say, but it's actually really, really important. And here's why. So we remember the Trump tax cuts, 2017, said they would cost $1.5 trillion. When they went back and looked at it, it was closer to two. Most of it went to the largest corporations in America and also very wealthy people.
It didn't trickle down? It didn't
In
trickle?
fact, it did not, believe it or not. In 2025, the end of 2025, all of the individual tax changes in the Trump tax cuts expire.
Right.
All the tax cuts for the wealthy, all of that stuff expires. The next election will determine what we're going to do at that point.
Gross.
If Trump gets in, those tax cuts are probably going to be extended at a
Yeah.
cost of, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the cost would be $5 trillion if you just extended every one of the tax cuts in. They do this clever thing with the Trump tax cuts where they cut them off early so they didn't look like they cost that very much. It was also because of the way they had to produce it for using majority vote, the way they had
Yeah.
to pass it
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
reconciliation. It has to not cost past the budget window of 10 years. So they cut it off early to make it look cheaper, right? But if you extended it in perpetuity, it'd be $5 trillion.
David, can I, if you don't mind, can I ask, isn't this like, if you were to de-wonk this and put it in layman's terms for the average public, wouldn't this be like a winning talking point for the Biden administration? Like a
100%.
huge contrast to Trump?
This is the contrast of the election in fiscal terms.
Yeah.
There are obviously a lot of things that are contrasts in the election, but in fiscal terms, one side wants to give giant tax breaks to corporations and the wealthy that cost $5 trillion. And the other side wants to raise taxes on the wealthy. There's a billionaire tax that he announced in.
Yes. 25%.
Right. That would be a minimum tax, so that right now the effective tax rate of billionaires is 8%. He would make it a minimum. You would have to pay 25% of your.
I mean, it will all go to the military, but like, yay.
Right. So what Biden is saying is, he would increase taxes on the wealthy and would increase them to an extent on corporations. And that 21% is also a minimum tax. Right now, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, all corporations have to pay at least 15% on their earnings. And it's their book earnings, not what they say to the IRS they get, but what they say to investors that they've made. Because companies, when they talk to investors, they're like, we're doing awesome. We made $20 billion last year. And then they go to the IRS and say, we didn't do anything. We suck.
Yeah.
We lost a ton of money.
And Janet's like, oh, fine.
Yeah, it's a corporate tax on the book profits. And what Biden wants to do is he wants to raise that minimum from 15 to 21. So the real tax rate would still be, I think it's 28% or 25%.
But at least 21.
But the minimum would be 21. So even with deductions.
Keep going with the Inflation Reduction Act. Where are we at on this one? Does the Climate Corps come under that? Actually,
it was separate. The Climate Corps was initially in the IRA, and then it was taken out. Thank you, Joe Manchin.
That's right.
But the administration figured out a way to do it on their own, basically through AmeriCorps, which is an existing entity that was put in place during the Clinton administration. So I believe they're accepting the first applications for the first round of Climate Corps individuals. And I think they want to get up to 10,000 people. These will be mostly young people who go into service with this Climate Corps and are doing projects that
like locking down oil pipelines and
they'll be sort of contractors, I guess. Not necessarily employees, but they will have this stipend and they will be able to engage in this work for a period of time.
I mean, I bring that up because it's like
not
an
a huge
irony of
program.
this.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's 10,000 people. It's not a big program, but
No, it's not. But it is an ironic because like we're at a time when we're producing more fossil fuels than ever before, right? And yet we have this climate core, and Biden's like, we just have to do a little bit more extraction, and then we'll go to renewables later.
There aren't 10,000 people in the oil and gas industry, right? And it's a much higher number. So,
Indeed.
There's an imbalance there. But as far as the IRA is concerned, so, two things we should probably talk about. The first are the climate measures. And then later on, we can talk about the healthcare and particularly prescription drug measures.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're talking about the climate measures, the Inflation Reduction Act gave a host of grants, I think $369 billion. That's what it was assumed to be. That was the estimated cost. Turns out it's going to be much, much more expensive than that. And that's actually a good thing, because what it means is these credits, which go towards energy efficiency, which go towards renewable energy production, which go towards rebates for electric vehicles, which go towards charging stations, which go towards a whole host of things across and all attempts at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Turns out they're very, very popular. And Goldman Sachs, about a year after the IRA passed, put out an estimate and said, we're actually going to give 4 times as many tax credits as we thought we were. Where we've seen this so far is in a boom in manufacturing construction costs. So first you have to build the factory, right? If you're making whether it's a factory to produce minerals for the clean energy transition for electric vehicles or for batteries,
right.
Or whether you're building electric car factories, or whether you're building renewable energy sites, you got to build them first. So you're going to see this first in the construction. And if you look at a graph of manufacturing construction, it's a straight line upward, and it happens right at the August 2022 when the Inflation Reduction Act comes into force. So that's a good thing. We don't know that those jobs are going to be good jobs that are created.
I mean, he had Sean Fain. He rolled out Sean Fain, head of the UAW. So arguably they would be union jobs.
Potentially, but it's nowhere in the law does it say they have to be, right?
Right.
And there are ways that the administration is trying to nudge that forward. There's
Inshallah, it's the Inshallah policy.
One good case study was in I believe it was in Alabama. There's an electric bus factory, Bluebird, and they got a grant from the EPA to do electric buses. And in that grant, it said you have to be neutral if there's a union activity, an attempt at union bargaining at the plant. And there was an existing union organizing campaign going on there. And so the company had to remain neutral in that campaign, and the campaign won. We actually wrote about that. It was in Georgia, not Alabama. It was in Macon, Georgia. And we wrote about that at the Prospect as part of our Building Back America series, which you can look at if you go to prospect.org. So those are good examples. And then we have other examples, like, a good one that we've written about is it's part of the CHIPS Act. It's a different bill, but it's the semiconductor factory they're making in Phoenix. And it's a company called TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, making this huge campus in Phoenix.
Wait, it's from Taiwan? I thought this was all about American stuff.
Well, it's American
Asian
factory.
sounds on it.
Well, in fact, TSMC is one of the largest, if not the largest, semiconductor manufacturer in the country, and has a monopoly on a lot of these high-end chips. So if you're going to deal with a company trying to bring them, shore them onto the United States, you're going to have to go through them. So, but unfortunately, TSMC isn't sort of down with letting American workers do this. So they tried to import a bunch of Taiwanese workers. They were bringing, we went to the factory, and there were all kinds of license plates from Mexico there. They're bringing in foreign workers from everywhere. A lot of these workers can't talk to each other. It's led to delays at the plant.
Sure.
Fire that we found at the plant that was because of this miscommunication.
Oh my God.
There's the good version of this and the bad version of this. And I would say TSMC is maybe part of the bad.
There's a lot we could talk about. I mean, I really appreciate you because it is wonky, but it's important. It just like all of these fix-its and changes, again, I would say like nibbling at, late stage rampant capitalism, and trying to rein it in, various ways, whether antitrust or whether these initiatives. And yet it still feels like, is this enough to
Right.
stop the coming fascist, takeover and or like the complete collapse of the economy and class warfare? I mean, like
Well,
literal.
it's tough, but I mean, the area where I think you could, that I at least see the most hope is in antitrust. So,
Yeah.
where we've had a number of really positive developments in a really recent period of time, over the last 3-4 months. We saw the Justice Department sue and have a what looks to be a fairly successful trial against Google. They could end up with a breakup of that company's dominance over search. There's another Google case over their ad tech, which they control every side of the transaction on, where that case is going to trial in May. We've seen high profile mergers be broken up, like the JetBlue Spirit merger, which the Justice Department blocked. There was another merger between, speaking of semiconductors, between NVIDIA and a company called ARM. That was blocked. Adobe was trying to merge with somebody. That was blocked. I almost can't name all of them because there are many. There's more recently, a case has been filed against Amazon. There's a case that was filed against a proposed merger between Kroger and Albertsons, which would create the biggest market in the U.S.
Very
and
different
Kroger
in
has
my mind.
20 different names, right? So you're talking about
Kroger Sons,
Ralph's. You're talking about
Ralph's.
You're talking about like there's
Safeway.
You think it's like 2 companies, but it's actually like 30 different mergers that would be going on there. Anyway, the Justice Department, Antitrust Division, and the Federal Trade Commission have really created a sea change in how our relationship, the government's relationship to corporate power.
Yeah.
And, presidencies are not monoliths. There are good people and bad people in administrations. There certainly are policies that I violently disagree with that are being undertaken by the Biden administration. But there are also, when you talk about these binary choices in elections, it's also about Lena Khan. It's about Jonathan Cantor at the DOJ antitrust. It's about Rohit Chopra at the CFPB that's doing really good stuff. It's about the National Labor Relations Board, which is doing some amazing work. So you have to look at this sort of as a whole.
And it's about, I mean, it was very funny because Biden in multiple instances in his State of the Union was like, in 20 years and 30 years. And you're like, when you're no longer here, bro, like you're not going to see the fruits of any of this.
Right.
I mean, and I do take issue with the fact he's taking credit for lowering prescription drug prices, even though it hasn't actually kicked in yet.
That's what I wish. I mean, what I wish is that the administration and more specifically the Congress, when they put together these laws, they don't build in these timelines, and these timelines are there for a reason. They're there so that the industry that's being regulated has a chance to stop them, right? I mean,
and all the lawsuits have come down actually from the pharmaceutical companies as well.
Correct. So, I mean, what we're specifically talking about is for the very first time in the Inflation Reduction Act, the government can negotiate prices of select prescription drugs in Medicare. First of all, that's only in Medicare, right? So that's not anyone under the age of 65. That's number one. Number two is that this negotiation will happen over a period of years, and seniors won't actually see the benefits of those lower prices until 2026. So, it's a little hard to say, I, for the first time, negotiated prescription drug prices in Medicare if literally no one sees the benefits of that. Now, there were other things that already have kicked in, $35 cap on insulin in Medicare, which has been mirrored by some caps outside of Medicare, which is largely because of the American Rescue Plan. And that's way too wonky for us to talk about now. But there was a little thing in the American Rescue Plan that made it so that insulin manufacturers were incentivized to lower their prices.
Yeah, I remember that. It is very much this dance of, if we can incentivize the evil profiteers, if we can incentivize the greed, maybe it'll work out in our favor. And it has. I mean, I think you've pointed to some really important pieces, and yeah, it is not a small thing to get rid of junk fees that are truly slowly gouging people in industries, and everyone's just sort of shaking their heads like, who the fuck's gonna stop this? Dark Brandon, y'all. Dark Brandon.
But Francesca, you know what? Like, listen to David. If you really, I'm critical of Biden, but if you look at his policies and what he's done with the American Rescue Plan, if you do with the Inflation Reduction Act, the promise to raise taxes on the billionaires, make them pay their fair share of taxes, there are a lot of wins. I think the failure is that they still haven't been able to communicate these wins in an effective way to the voters. And I think the best way to do it is do the compare and contrast. This guy raising taxes, I will like lower taxes. This guy, doing tax cuts for the rich, I am not for that. This guy wants to eliminate Social Security and Medicare. I just feel like if they do that type of very simplistic messaging, and bank on the wins, then people will know, because otherwise people have no idea. Like, no one's gonna sit for 25 minutes and listen to David break it down intelligently. I wish they did, but they don't.
You're
and then
saying
that's why
people
you
aren't going to listen to the
Yeah, what are you talking about?
room right now? And,
This show is massive. Excuse me.
I'm talking about the Rust Belt. I'm talking about the diners in the
we're
Rust
really
Belt.
big in the Rust.
You're huge in Dayton.
But you're totally right. And I do think, like, to be honest with you, if you actually listen to Biden's State of the Union, he attempted to, but angry and very, very difficult to enunciate. Like, he just didn't enunciate. It's just
there's also the media filter, right? I mean, you're never going to hear any of this on Fox News. You're never going to hear. You're not even going to hear much of this on the other major media.
No, you barely hear it. You barely hear it.
Organizations. So, yes, is it a communication problem? I would actually agree with that. Is it an easy problem to solve? I don't know, unless you go around the filter. And
I think we should
that's
call
what the
it
election is for.
The Marxist Green New Deal Abortions on Demand Plan. That's just an idea.
Well, you have to add a
we'll
drug.
Workshop it.
What drug do you want? Mushrooms? On mushrooms?
I mean, shrooms would be great. I'm
shrooms.
down. Like, it's like Bobert's like majoring in, what was it, queer dance theory or something, and I was like, that sounds great. And also my degree is literally in third world feminist studies, or so guilty as charged.
Very lucrative, that third world studies, right?
Oh my God. The kickbacks I get. David Dayen, thank you so much for being here. Once again, everybody check out the American prospect.org. Subscribe. It's so nice to have it in your hands, and I write for the back page.
Indeed.
So that's why you got to also get it.
That's right.
Thank you, David.
Be Francesca Fiorentini completus, everybody.
That's right.
You can't get everything out of her brain unless you subscribe.
No, that's true. That's actually true.
And David also wrote a book. The Steve Mnuchin book.
I got a couple of them. Yeah.
If you want to know too
much,
maybe
the Mnuchin book will get a little jump now that he's buying TikTok. People want to.
It really will. I hope people go. I hope you get some good hits off telling us how Mnuchin's brain works or does not work.
Right.
Thank you, David. Take good care. Waj, I'm going to keep you on for a little bit. I'm going to subject you to some RFK news. This was interesting.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm here for the RFK. I was promised some RFK content.
So, okay. I haven't wanted to talk about RFK, but I think it is relevant because he is the sort of the jury's out on who he's going to be stealing votes from. This is sort of like, some polls show he's stealing more from Trump, and some polls show he's stealing more from Biden. This is from ABC. While polling indicates Kennedy may be taking support from Biden, conversations with some of his most vocal supporters suggest the truth is more complex. Almost every one of nearly a dozen people who spoke to ABC News at the Kennedy rally in Las Vegas this winter said they would vote for Trump if Kennedy were not in the race. And you hear that a lot, like going to Trump rallies, and you're like, if you couldn't vote for Trump, who would it be? RFK Jr. And I think there is truth in all of that, and I think that might be significant later. But this is just a little clip from CNN because they love to roll out kind of like women from Big Little Lies who are just like suburban, cloaked in like pretty
Pastel colors.
Southwest like shawls, um big brimmed hats, felt brimmed hats and stuff. Um and this is them getting in touch with undecided suburban women voters.
They're both way too old to be there.
One's too childish, one's too senile.
What do you all need to hear to pick a candidate?
Michelle Obama come in.
I need a new
Did she
candidate.
slide in?
Yes.
I really do.
Maybe Kennedy being a stronger
Yeah.
opponent.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with actually both of you.
Yeah. We need somebody new to come in and shake things up.
Yes, make measles great again. When was the last time you had polio?
That was very good, by the way. That was impressive. You tapped into it because you're leaning into your future role as a suburban mom, by the way.
I wish I had that money. For you guys listening, there is a fire crackling in the little outdoor whatever fireplace. There's a cheese spread. They're drinking wine. They're
Handmade
covered
blankets.
They're covered in blankets. They're so concerned. They're about to tell the help to refill their glasses, and they're just like they don't know who to vote for.
I drink organic water from the beach, and it helps my electrolytes. You're like, what?
Yeah, I get a lot of negative ions from the beach.
Yeah, it reminds me of so yes, in a way. Look, historically, third party candidates have hurt Democrats. In RFK might be an interesting outlier in that he might hurt both, but he might hurt Trump a bit more based on the polling you've said. But there is a phenomenon here. I'm glad you showed that clip of the suburban, wealthy, educated moms, because I used to live in the Bay Area and I saw this anti-vax craze kind of bubble up in very privileged cul-de-sacs.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, we do alternative medicine and we're against vaccine, this and very educated, very privileged, very wealthy, kind of closed circuit community, even though they then live in the Bay Area and like these absurd zip codes, working at YouTube and Google, but they're against the man. And so I think he also appeals to that type of an Aaron Rodgers mindset, right? People who think they're smarter than everyone else, people who, like many of us, have a deeply unhealthy, I would say, they have a deeply unhealthy mistrust of institutions, live in their little ecosystem and get fed nonsense on WhatsApp. And the fear, though, for me with the RFK being mainstreamed is even though he might hurt Trump more than he might hurt Biden, and because that's what it's going to go down to, folks. He's not going to win any votes in the Electoral College.
No,
it's the mainstreaming of his batshit ideas.
I think that's a really important point, and I also think it is people who think they can buy their way out of the two-party system, or that they think that just because it's a third party, it's like somehow more enlightened or smarter. And he's being bolstered by a lot of elitists and moneyed interests, and it's like it kind of, again, third party in this, like, in the no labels, in the Andrew Yang sort of ilk, reminds me of this like I'm just too rich and smart to deal with this broken ass democracy. It's like, no, you're in the trenches with us. You're still in the trenches. You don't get out of this because you don't want to take your kid to get vaccinated because you're lazy and they cry. Because I know about that. But in fact, he hasn't even made the ballot. He's only got one ballot. He's only on one state's ballot, Utah. He says they're trying to gather enough signatures in at least 3 others, including Nevada. We just heard those women were from Arizona. And it seems like his running mate won't be Aaron Rodgers, but maybe Nicole Shanahan, who is was part of this $7 million pro-Kennedy Super Bowl ad, if you remember that.
Terrible ad. The family rejected the ad. The family has rejected him. They're taking photos with Biden.
To that point, this is St. Patrick's Day, guys. And Wajahat is referencing the whole Kennedy family. And they're all tagged. And there they are. Biden's right in the middle. And
epic shade.
Epic shade. And no RFK.
I mean,
they're all
you made
cardboard
you
cutouts.
made a good point though. I mean, and I think that's a point that it's an astute observation as to why people might go third parties, because they're so disgusted by the two-party system. They want something new, they want something fresh, they want a bulldozer, but they don't realize the people that are allegedly the bulldozers are just as tainted. And in the case of RFK, the dude is funded by hardcore right-wing multi-billionaires, right? Timothy Mellon of the Mellon banking family fortune that gives to right-wing campaigns is giving money to RFK. So
Yes.
you're pretty much, it's like you want it's like, you know, you want to like hire Charlize Theron or The Rock or Tom Cruise to be an action star, but that you can't get them, so you get like Scott Adkins, who by the way is dope, and I don't want to compare Scott Adkins to RFK, but you're not opening a movie with Scott Adkins.
Scott Adkins. I've gotta do some No, you're definitely not. I don't even know this dude's face, but yeah.
He was the dude, and he's really good, by the way. He was in John Wick 4. They made him wear the big fat man suit, and they had the epic fight in the Belgian like rave where no one stopped and noticed like they were killing each other. I'm disrespecting him, but it's
That's
actually an
really
exquisite
funny.
analogy.
He's
It's a
actually in
deep
John
cut.
Wick 4, and I love that.
Deep cut.
I appreciate you for that reason. But you're
Hey, you did lesbian queer theory from Bobert. That was a deep dance theory. Was that dance major? That was a deep cut.
lesbian, dance theory. But just this is very funny. So he's getting lots of money. You're right, from Timothy Mellon, who has also donated to Trump. But maybe this is where the shawls came from. One of the largest donations to Kennedy's bid is the strangest, more than $100,000 worth of alpaca shawls handed out to roughly 250 people who attended his birthday party earlier this winter.
I told you, the suburban moms. I'm not wrong. The cul-de-sacs. Listen, people, this is why they pay me the big money.
That's just yes. Oh,
Who buys alpaca shawls? It ain't the Uncle Chet in the Rust Belt diner. It's Susie.
Can you imagine? It'd be very funny if you go to like the Rust Belt diner. They're all just like in these incredible alpaca shawls. Like, I don't know, I really like RFK Jr. Like, what is a lovely shawl, sir? Thank you. I didn't even know what a shawl was.
That's a lovely wool shawl. It's not wool, it's alpaca. Like, my bad.
So funny. All right, before we get out of here, one last thing. Let's think about who would be Trump's running mate. There's a lot of thirsty ass mofos out there. Trump mate, let's go. Now, before we dig into this, I just want to play you a clip of perhaps one of the thirstiest people who's seeking this nomination. Here was Tulsi Gabbard speaking to Don Trump Jr. on his podcast on Rumble. And here she is. Again, remember, one-time progressive?
All about vice president, something I've also seen a bunch here. And actually, for the last few weeks, how are you responding to that call?
I'd be honored. I'd be honored to serve my country in that way. I'd be honored to actually be in a position to help President Trump execute his policies, bringing the experience that I have had of being on the front lines of many of these battles.
Just the longest, wettest fart. That's all.
Can I flex for a second? Because these are the small victories in life. I called out Tulsi Gabbard years ago, and some progressives were very angry at me. I'm like, just have faith in me. I feel like Brown Paul Revere, but instead of being seen as a hero, they'll like shoot me off the horse. Like,
well, you know that I have people Venmo me $1 if I was right about Tulsi, and they were telling me about that. I've gotten like at least $3 from people who have the temerity to Venmo me TBR-live $1 if you thought Tulsi was a good progressive. And I was telling you were wrong, just like Wajahat was. Also, she's so Islamophobic.
Oh yeah,
as
deeply.
a Muslim, like you,
warmonger.
She's the worst. She's always like, I want to reign in forever wars unless it's Muslims who die.
Yeah, unless it's Assad in Russia involved.
Yeah, then he takes her a tour of the places that aren't rubble. Just ridiculous. Anyway, so Tulsi's in there. Here was Axios's little whatever March Madness situation. Senator Tim Scott, I think arguably as thirsty, maybe the thirstiest. Representative Elise Stefanik, Senator J.D. Vance, can't believe he's still a senator. Ben Carson, remember, neurosurgeon. Carrie Lake, who has not won literally any seat. Vivek Ramaswamy, Governor Kristi Noem, Governor Greg Abbott, Senator Katie, again, the overacting housewife Britt. Katie Britt, Representative Byron Donalds, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Nikki Haley. Never. I want to keep this up there, but I also want to keep talking to you about all of this.
I think they need to do a contest of champions and like prove who wants it the most, who's willing to do the most extreme act. And I think Senator Tim Scott has already proven it by becoming heterosexual. So I think he, what? Too soon? He's allegedly heterosexual. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
He got engaged to a live real woman person.
Sure, I hear that.
But as of today, actually, as of today, I know. So if you saw the news, Francesca, was right before recording. Vivek's out, according to Trump.
Oh
He has
no!
a cabinet
Why?
position. He's gonna put him in a cabinet position.
Oh my God!
So you could put a big X on Vivek. He apparently
For
likes
now.
Elise. Yeah, he likes Elise a lot. He likes Tim Scott a lot. Apparently, he likes JD Vance. Those are the three he apparently likes a lot. And Carrie's hungry and thirsty also.
I think it will be a woman or a person of color. So this is like a game of guess who. This is like the worst game of guess who. Because the rest of them, yes, might be in the cabinet. I mean, Greg Abbott, I don't know where he would. I don't know. I don't care. I feel like Greg Abbott would be safer in an administration than he would be as governor of Texas. Somehow.
The reason why Abbott won't do it, I think, well, the only reason why Abbott would do it is if he wants to Brutus Trump because they realize he's going to die or go to jail and he wants to emerge as the next one, right? So he's like, he will die soon and then I will be Palpatine. But I do think strategically, if you want to make Trump more warm with his like overt racism, Tim Scott, I love the blacks. Look at Tim. And then if you want to say like, hey, yes, I was... Yes, I raped E. Jean Carroll and defamed her, and a jury of my peers held me liable. But look, I have this broad next to me, the Stefanik. I love the women.
So notice who's not on here. I mean, this is according to Axios, but Marjorie Greene is not on here.
She's out.
I mean, did she have too much flair at the State of the Union? Was it like one too many pieces?
Too eager. You're too eager. When you're too thirsty, you're like, nah.
He truly doesn't like too thirsty. Like we've seen that before where people get too up his butt and he's like, you can safely hang around the cheeks, but like not in the crack. It's like, anyway,
that's
sorry.
Pence. That's Pence. Pence is like, I will hover around the crack, but mother doesn't allow me to enter the crack.
Pence, who said he's not going to endorse Trump.
That's big news, actually. That is big news.
That actually is. That is pretty big news.
And also big news, Francesca, if this was a normal country with a normal election, with a normal media, is that a majority of the people who served with Trump, there's a running list, including his vice president. I think that list is pretty high. I want to give the exact number, have said they won't endorse him. It's like a stunning number. So literally the people who know him, who were in office with him, are telling the American people, this man is not suitable. And 40% of America is like, I might go with the guy who told me to inject bleach during a pandemic.
Hello to the Surfs viewers, just real quick. By the way, Vivek is for Homeland Security.
There you go. Terrible.
But he'd be so excited for kicking the Browns out, who aren't him.
The bad Browns.
The bad Browns.
If you just work hard and you don't whine, you don't talk about DEI, and you have white teeth like mine, I'll let you stay.
And you can't tell if your forehead's actually growing bigger while you're talking. Yeah, that was actually really good. I like that smile.
Brown kids, don't let brown kids grow up to be Vivek or Nikki.
I think you said that before. We had Jeet here on the other day, and he had a great piece about the Dacey vote, the Dacey divide, as he called it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. My money's on Elise. I think Stefanik would be good. It's either that or Carrie Lake. I would say Elise, Kristi Noem, or Carrie Lake.
I would say Elise. The reason why, so I don't know if the juice that there's so much juice. Kristi Noem, the reason why she might not is she allegedly had an affair with Corey Lewandowski.
Affair? Aren't they still? I feel like, I mean, they're still doing it.
So that would, that might make it a little messy. I think Elise has proven to be the most stalwart, shameless warrior who's done a complete 180 on her
Yes.
entire career and personality. I want folks to remember that she came in as a new type of Republican, a moderate. And once she saw where the winds were, sailing and turning, she literally has transformed her entire personality for Trump. Has backed him up after the when they did the Nancy Mace type of interrogation of her. What do you think about the Eugene Carroll? Threw Eugene Carroll under the bus. And
Yes.
it gives her the white suburban mom look, the warmth, but also the fighter. I think he'll go for her over the others. I think Tim Scott's complexion might be a problem, and I'm using the quote that he allegedly used against Nikki Haley when she was brought up as a potential VP candidate back in the day. She has a quote complexion problem.
He did not. Oh, I think
That was according to Susan Glasser and Peter Baker in their book that that Nikki has a complexion problem. And she still served for him and supported him.
Wait, does Tim Scott think he's white?
I might be. I could be. You want me to be what? I could be what? I just I have a girl. I have a white girlfriend. She's a woman. She has woman parts. Sorry, the channel that. This is what fasting does, folks.
We have to do a whole radio play. We're doing it. I'll do Pelosi. Who else do I got? I've got Greta Thunberg. You do Tim Scott. And
my Bernie is a little rusty, but I could practice. It used to be good.
Yeah, Bernie's pretty fun.
The rich need to pay their taxes.
No, I think I've got the Bernie. Okay, you
got the Bernie.
do.
Okay.
You do
with your
Vivek.
alopecia.
I'll take the Bernie.
What's that skin, the sheep skin you got on?
Oh, the alpaca.
Alpaca, not alopecia.
Alopecia is very different.
Alpaca,
the alpaca
whatever.
with alopecia, that I would like to see.
I would like to see it. That's just me naked.
32-hour work week. Wajahat Ali, you're so wonderful. Where can people find you and follow your work?
I'm unfortunately still on X at Wajahat Ali. I'm on the Insta and Threads at Insta Wajahat. I write for the Daily Beast. I should be writing my book, but I wrote a book that came out 2 years ago that people liked. A paperback came out this year called Go Back to Where You Came From, and other helpful recommendations on how to become American. And every week you can hear me and Danielle Moody on our podcast called Democracy-ish.
Democracy-ish. What day does that come out? Wednesdays?
Comes out tomorrow morning, every Thursday morning.
Hell yeah.
And Francesca was supposed to be our guest, but she's, has like a kid and 3 podcasts she hosts, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, you've got 3 kids in 1 podcast, so It's the other way. All right, Waj, take care. And thank you guys for being here, for sticking around. Let's read some comments and then fuck off into the night. Thank you, Robert, for your super chat. Dems don't brag about the economic things they do to help ordinary people because they don't want to antagonize their donors, right? They almost don't want to draw attention to it on either side. It's just not good for messaging. Donald James, great show on Sunday, Fran. My brother and his wife didn't know who you and Matt were, but now they are fans. Oh, that's awesome. Did you get them to go or did we meet? We had such a great show in Sacramento. That was so fun. Shout out to Sac, sending so much love. Judy Phillips, is Raffi still a thing? My kids listened to him 30 years ago. No big deal, but Raffi's coming out with a new album. Okay. As is Cardi B. So as is Beyonce. There's a lot of new albums coming out. Or Cardi, I don't know. Don't get me started. Let's see. Camperman 5000. We call them France. Wajahat. Yeah, they are France. By the way, what does CBD stand for? I don't know. Cannabinoid, bupkis, cannabidiol. Cannabidolium. Sounds a lot worse. Let's see. Pranay says Glazer's right, and Albert Einstein said the same thing in a letter to the New York Times in 1948. What? Albert Einstein was an anti-Zionist? Let me find out. Miss Anonymous about the letter that the 450 Jewish executives and creatives wrote. Did they use AI to write it? I mean, pretty much. Vanessa Maldonado, thank you, says TikTok should go out with a bang, send a generalized message in the app to warn that TikTok is being banned at the behest of the Zionist genocidal organizations like AIPAC. Vote accordingly. They effectively did. They were able to channel people to call their representatives, which honestly, I agree big data, blah, blah, and data, data breaches and questions of privacy. But the way they were able to get to just with a button, you could call your representative. That's fucking cool. Sorry. It's very cool. If we had a people-powered app, social media app, that's exactly what we would have. Thank you, Electron Creations, for your sticker. Kissing Gonzo has a good question. It was my understanding that once some food prices go up, they never come down. Wages need to compensate instead. Yeah, I mean, you can't imagine them going down. Once you get away with charging something, just once Apple gets away with not selling headphones. I wanted to ask about that. Is Lena Khan doing anything about the fact that when you buy a new iPhone, you don't get like a charger, you don't get headphones? Can we do something about that? Maybe. I like Terrence Trumbo. He's a member on YouTube, so he gets access to all the bonus episodes. He says, when we're in a Mad Max hellscape 30 years from now, we won't be able to say, what now, Butcher Biden? Meaning, is Biden's sort of piecemeal way of reform enough to prevent us from a coming Mad Max scenario? Potentially. Instructor says, take Huckabee and her out of Arkansas. And Jay Cass, thank you for your super sticker. Chat says, Tim Scott has reverse vitiglio. I don't know what that means. And Donald, we did meet after the show. Hell yeah. Thank you guys so much. Also, do you know that if you become a patron on the show at $10 or more, you get a fucking shout out? That's right. During the fart song, which is this. Infantile. But I thank Katie Purry, Diego Lozino, Patrick Pagan, and David Donacci, who became members, patrones. These are all my patrones at $10 or more. Thank you so much. And over on Twitch. Shit. Where'd my window go? No. I think I closed my Twitch, y'all. This is very sad. That's okay. Thank you to everyone who works on the show, to Paige Omek, Maximilian Inhofe, Andy Vasoyan. We're going to dance about Twitch. I got you on Friday. Again, thanks to Paige Omek, Maximilian Inhofe, Andy Vasoyan. We stream every Tuesday and Friday for now. Maybe adding a stream soon. 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. Follow the show on all the social media, Bitchuation Pod on Twitter or X and TikTok for now, Bitchuation Room, Instagram Bitchuation Room. And remember to fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye.